This is a Viva PR podcast.
We're called Hard Numbers for two reasons. One, we help ambitious, high-growth businesses achieve stretching commercial targets. And the second is we deliver best-in-class measurement. We think GEO is the most interesting opportunity for professional communicators in the last 20 years. Let's get hold of this. And it is a new opportunity where new budget is being created for new activity. Let's make sure we claim that rather than let that be claimed by someone else.
I'm going to let you into a secret today. When I heard this guy speak at an industry event, I immediately turned to producer Dan and said, we've got to get him on the pod. I'm Tony Garner from Viva, PR agency based in Lancashire. And today's guest, we've got Darryl Sparey, co-founder and MD of agency Hard Numbers. And today we're going to talk about what could be the biggest opportunity for the PR world for the last 2 decades. What makes Darryl such a great guest is that he just, every time he speaks, he comes out with something that's like, wow, that's great. It's an insight. In fact, so many that we've decided to make this our first ever double episode. So in part 1, you'll hear Darryl talking about his groundbreaking research into the large language models like ChatGPT and Claude, Perplexity, and what it means for the PR industry and for PR professionals like you and me. And we'll also cover why Darryl thinks this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the PR world. But, word of warning, if we do not grasp this opportunity and get our acts together, we might let it slip through our fingers. So, best way to stop that from happening is to listen on.
So, Darryl, great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me on to be Tony. It's very kind of you.
Can we start with a little bit of context? Tell us about Hard Numbers and where the idea for the agency came along with, and what's makes your approach so different?
Yeah, thank you very much for asking. So, Hard Numbers really is a kind of marriage in many ways between myself and my business partner, Paul Stollery. Paul's background is in creative. He's worked for, doing kind of PR creative for Hotwire and then for the Romans, on both consumer and B2B clients. And me, obviously, my background is in business development, God's work, as we say, doing sales. And we when we launched, we kind of saw it as that marriage of kind of killer creative with commercial acumen. And that's kind of how we've always liked to kind of position ourselves. We talk about ourselves as PR ultimately that drives sales for exactly for that reason, or a commercial outcome ultimately for our clients. And so it's kind of a reflection of our skill sets and our experience to date, really.
Tell us about the name Hard Numbers then. Does it do exactly what it says on the tin, or how did that come up?
Shout out to Ben Verinda, a very good friend of mine, who when I told him I was leaving Hotwire, I said, so I've got this idea for an agency. It's Hard Numbers. And I gave him the pitch that I'll tell you in one moment. And his exact words to me were, it's a bit Ron Seal, mate. But yeah, so the pitch and anyone who's been pitched by Hard Numbers will have heard me say words very similar to this before. Is we're called Hard Numbers for two reasons. One, we help ambitious, high-growth businesses achieve stretching commercial targets, so we help them to achieve hard numbers. And the second is we deliver best-in-class measurement of what we do. We outspend agencies 3 times our size on tools, tech, things like that. And that gives us a platform to deliver absolutely kind of best-in-class measurement, marrying up our activity with results on our client side. So we deliver Hard Numbers on that basis as well. That's the reason.
Interesting. So, you've worked across sales, SEO, and PR before founding. Has that kind of shaped your vision then and your view of the industry, as it were?
Yeah, Tony, you could say if all you've got's a hammer, everything else looks remarkably like a nail. So maybe it's sort of, my take on things is very kind of individual to me because it's sort of all I can do really. But yeah, very much our reporting when we kind of set up our reporting for our clients, and we still we've iterated and developed it over time, but still the kind of core reporting platforms of HubSpot is the log for where all our activity goes. So any journalists we're pitching or media outlets we're pitching on our clients' behalf, or direct engagement with influencers or prospects of theirs on their behalf, all goes into HubSpot, and then we can drag that back out again and visualize that data using Looker Data Studio and bring in things like Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and other data sources as well to tell us holistic as possible story about what we've done and what impact that's had for their business. So that approach was there on day one and has kind of continued all the way through our life cycle to the agency that we are now. And over time we've added other capabilities or services that we provide our clients, and over time we've iterated to bring in more data sources from our clients, like access to their CRM system or data from their LinkedIn or their Google paid campaigns or things like that, to all go into one place, basically our data studio reports, and then tell as holistic a story as possible of what we've done and what it's delivered on the client's side.
And you've obviously been a very successful agency. You only lit the blue touch paper a few years back, but already the kind of the name has spread and it caught fire really.
Well, I mean, clearly we're very good at banging our own drum. My missus is from the Northeast, and she bought me a key ring once, which says on it, "Shy bairns get nout." And if anyone's from the Northeast, they'll know that means basically shy kids don't get fed.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm a working class lad, admittedly from the other side of the country, and I've always taken the view of no one's going to do me any favors, right? I've got to be out there. I've got to be, banging the drum for what we're doing and telling people about what we're doing, and because no one's going to do it for us. So yeah, that's just our approach. We're very fortunate. We have had a kind of a lot of success at awards, both being recognised for our own work as an agency. We're currently PR Moments B2B Agency of the Year. Last year we won PRCA Small Consultancy of the Year, and the year we launched, the first 2 years we launched, we won more Best New Agency awards than any other agency that started at the same time of us. And there were some brilliant agencies that started in the same year as us, like Fight or Flight or Bold Space or Words and Pixels, and Shook as well, and many others. There were 48 other PR agencies that launched the same year that we did. But there's a man who loves numbers. remembering that one. But yeah, we've been fortunate, and also in terms of the recognition we've had for our client work. We've won numerous AMEC awards and other industry awards for the work that we've done for our clients as well. So I think that's been a part of our success and something we've always invested our time, treasure, and talent in doing. But yeah, if I had to, I'd be out there on the street corner with a megaphone going, come and hear more about hard numbers, if it came to it, because no one's going to do it for us.
One of your differentiators, and sorry, fair play to you. I mean, I take my hat as an agency boss myself. I know those awards don't come for free. They're backed up by a lot of hard work, and you've got to have done the work and done the hard yards to actually merit them. So fair play to you. And one of your differentiators, I was really impressed with this idea that if you don't hit the KPIs, you're billing at cost that month. And explain to our kind of followers what that's all about.
Yeah. So, I mean, the genesis of all of that is that no idea is completely original. It's from a book called Traction by a chap called Gino Wickman, in which he basically lays out in the best articulation of this that I've ever seen, what he calls the entrepreneur's operating system. And it's all the things that we as professional communicators and marketers would be familiar with, your kind of your mission, your vision, your values, and all that stuff. But the framework in which it's set just makes perfect sense to me. And within that, he says that a couple of things. You should have 3 uniques. So 3 things that in totality, not any one of them individually, but in totality make you unique from anyone else. And then you should have a guarantee. So our 3 uniques are, and they're kind of related, our commitment to KPIs. So we write our KPIs into our contracts, and we have a clause in our contract that says we'll work at our cost. We'll hit them in any given quarter. And if we don't hit them in any given quarter, we'll work at our cost until we do. The second is that commitment to commercial outcomes. So basically, we will only do things that ultimately are going to commercially benefit our clients. Now, that might sound a bit glib to say, but I'm sure you've been in the same position yourself, Tony, where you'll have clients that come to you and say, we need a TikTok channel.
Yes.
or we need whatever. And then through questioning them to say, well, actually, does your audience, hang out on TikTok? If you're a retail bank targeting CTOs and CIOs, is TikTok the channel that's going to reach them, for example, or whatever? So that's our kind of, that one of our unique. And then the final unique is all of our senior team is either chartered or accredited by the CIPR, and we commit to continuous professional development. So the guarantee that comes from that is in any given quarter, we will hit our KPIs or we'll work at our costs until we do. Now, we've worked with over 100 clients. That clause in our contract has been exercised once, but it's something that we feel incredibly passionate about keeping in our contract and having that commitment to our clients, because that's our guarantee. It keeps us as an agency on our mettle, and it keeps continuous skin in the game for us with our clients and what we do for them. And
it must keep you really focused as well on asking that right question and
yeah. But I mean, both, what I suppose on the client side, what is success?
Yeah,
because too many times you'll know this from your own experience as well. You'll get a brief that says the objective of this investment is brand awareness.
Yeah,
but no, okay. But then you ask a few questions. So, how are you currently measuring brand awareness? We're not. Right? What would the uplift in brand awareness be that you would be looking to drive? We don't know. Right? Like, you kind of get through those questions. So then you have to ask some more questions to understand, well, actually, what is the sort of commercial or what are the bigger business objectives that you're trying to achieve this year, over the next 3 to 5 years or whatever? And what do you see PR communications as contributing to that? Okay, now we understand that a bit better. What are the activities that we can undertake to then create outputs that are then ultimately going to drive outcomes that are going to drive towards those business objectives? So I think it's always about exactly to your point, Tony, right? Asking questions to get to what actually is the point of us doing this. Like, why are we here? Why are you investing in this? What is it that you want to see as a result? And then always trying to keep us laser focused on that. It also means that those KPIs will change over time.
Yeah.
There are a number of clients whereby, for myriad reasons, they've grown, they've got bigger. So, things have changed, or they have a new focus on a new target market. They pivoted their business or, something like that. So those KPIs might have to change as well. And we're more than happy to, agree that with our clients and then work to a new set of KPIs, as long as we understand, in the same level of depth that we did the previous set of KPIs, why we're doing it, what success looks like, how it should be measured, all that other good stuff. Then, we're more than happy to change, pivot, tweak, or whatever to ensure that we're continually delivering what ultimately looks like success for our clients.
That's a really good kind of trot through the kind of hard numbers philosophy and history, I guess. One of the reasons why you've come to our attention here at PR in the Real World is you mentioned Ben Verinder, one of our past guests. I think he mentioned you in his episode. But anyone who reads the industry press will have perhaps notice your name and in relation in particular to AI and some of the work that you've been doing and the white paper you produced 6
Yeah.
months or so ago around the importance of PR in this space. And I think you were one of the first guys I heard talking about Generative Engine Optimisation, or GEO. And you've said publicly that it could be the biggest opportunity for the PR industry for a couple of decades. For those who are new to this space, can you start in baby steps and just talk us through what is GEO and what are we actually talking about here before we get into the land of opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. So GEO stands for Generative Engine Optimization. It basically means optimizing content both on site and off site for generative AI platforms, generative engines that produce content. It has been variously called, and I will forget some acronyms that some other folks have used, but AIO, as in artificial intelligence optimization, AEO, artificial engine optimization, AI search optimization, LLM optimization. I mean, LEO, I've heard as well. I mean, you name it, someone's got a different acronym for it. I think it's sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's crystallizing around a couple of terms. We're using generative engine optimization primarily because Andreessen Horowitz a few weeks ago wrote a blog post called GEO and SEO, long form, really solid post, and it suddenly, like almost overnight, gained a currency, and you could see clients coming to us and saying, "Do you know what GEO is? Can you help us with this?" Yeah. And we were in a fortunate position where back in November, December last year, we'd done some research on, which I can talk to you about in a moment in more detail, about what impact earned media and other sources of media, so own media, your own website, and other outlets can have on what AI platforms say about your business. We look specifically at ChatGPT with that research, and from that, we've been doing some work in this area with a couple of our clients. So we were then able to develop a bit more of a proposition around this, and also able to develop more content from the experience we have of doing this kind of work that we could share with folks in the industry to just help them get their head around it, whether they are in-house or in agency. It doesn't matter to us. We believe a rising tide raises all ships. But ultimately, that whoever you were, if you were a professional communicator, you could have a conversation with someone and talk knowledgeably around the topic area. So that was the kind of purpose of the GEO for SEO primer that we wrote, which again I can talk to you in more detail about. But yeah, we think GEO, and I can tell you why in a moment. But we think GEO is possibly the most interesting opportunity for professional communicators in the last 20 years, certainly since the advent of Google and the various algorithm changes that have happened to Google over the course of the past 20 years.
Well, listeners are going to be screaming, asking why. So why?
So we have clients right now, admittedly in the B2B space rather than B2C, but who are seeing anything up to 25 to 30% of the traffic that they're seeing to their website at the moment coming from generative AI platforms. And it was really interesting. I had one client the other day where I was like, they're seeing, there's this thing in digital marketing at the moment called the great decoupling. And I always do that when I explain it. Sorry. But basically, impressions are rising and click-through rate is falling. And the reason for that is because Google has put its AI overviews at the top of Google searches. So it gives you that summary of what you might find underneath, looking on page 1 of Google. And that's led to a decrease in the number of people actually scrolling down and actually clicking on the blue links on page 1 of Google or deeper into the Google search. So there's this decoupling of impressions and click-through rate effectively that's happening online. And we're working with our clients on trying to manage that, because obviously if you're, in the in the business of reporting some of these metrics back internally, you don't really want to have to report that your traffic to your website is declining, over that period of time or things like that. So what we've worked with some clients on, and I had a client the other day that we worked with this on, I said, well, look, let's have a look specifically at how much of the traffic is coming currently from generative AI platforms. And they were like, oh, it'll be less than 1%.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, let's look at sorry to pardon the pun. Let's look at the hard numbers. Let's get into your GA and actually look at how much your Google Analytics, and let's look at how much of the referral traffic coming to your site at the moment comes from Gen AI platforms, and it was 27%.
Wow.
Right. So it was like, so I mean that's of referral traffic, not all traffic, because obviously they're doing paid ads, they're doing other stuff or whatever. But that was like a real eye-opening moment for them, where we're like, holy moly, this is much bigger than I thought it was. And that in microcosm is the experience we're seeing when we're going around and talking to other clients about it. Because at the moment, and actually we're seeing it for a lot of our clients, whereby we track the top sources of referral traffic for them. We're seeing ChatGPT now very often in those top 10 sources of referral traffic. So not always, and certainly not for the B2C side of things, but for B2B, considered purchase. If the correlative, I think, is where you have a client that you might have done analyst relations for in the past, or where they talk to you about appearing in analyst reports or appearing in like more kind of B2B influencer style content, where it's normally expensive. It's an expensive long-term commitment. So it's like a 6 or 7 figure SaaS software investment this would be the platform for a business for the next 3 to 5 years at least. That kind of considered purchase, we're seeing more and more traffic come from Gen AI platforms. So the fact that this is happening, and I don't want to overstate the case, by the way, there are lots of if you go on Twitter or X, there are lots of people trying to hype this beyond where it is now. I see people on Twitter X saying stuff like, no one uses Google search anymore.
Okay.
Like, well, I've got some data points, specifically Google's last quarterly results, that might counter that argument. They increased the volume of they increased their revenue from search, and they increased the volume of traffic from their platform. So, Google search isn't dead, or anything like that. But what we are definitely seeing is where people are really spending time and effort in researching a product or a service, and where they would normally there would be multiple touch points where they would get information about the best product or service to meet a specific need. We're seeing an increasing volume of traffic from AI platforms to those kinds of company websites, and for that reason we think this is a big opportunity. And as professional communicators, this is where we should be. This is shaping the reputation of our clients. It just so happens it's shaping it in a slightly different forum to one that we might have 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, and it's definitely something else that we need to be kind of cognizant of. I think if we now look at the paper that you produced last year, and if you can explain to listeners what went on there and what the key findings were, that kind of is the next piece of the jigsaw, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Tony. So basically, we did a paper on reputation in the AI, in the age of AI, and we looked specifically at ChatGPT. ChatGPT's market share at the time was in the 65%, something like that. I've seen it showing up as anything as high as like 79% now. So it is clearly the standout platform. So I think like it made sense for us to look at it then, and it still makes sense to really focus on now. And basically what we did is we took a list of the world's most 100 valuable brands. we developed a quite simple reputation framework on four key reputation traits: quality of product or service, trust, innovation, value. We then queried ChatGPT using specific prompts about each trait, and basically asked the LLM to provide us with an answer to a question that was, what do you know slightly more complicated than this, but not a lot more complicated than this. What do you know about the quality of Microsoft's product or services? And could you please cite the source? And then we would get those answers back. And then we would categorize the source into different types. So own media, the client's own website; editorial media, so earned media; analyst reports, academic studies, industry awards, etc. And what we found, and the good news for all the PR folks out there, is editorial content from earned media coverage drives 61% of all LLM responses in relation to the world's 100 most valuable brands that we looked at. Interestingly, for some specific brand traits, reputation traits, so trust and value, editorial coverage was cited 65% of the time in relation to trust and 72% in responses related to value. So for some of those areas of reputation, it's even higher. And we've seen other research reports by other folks out there that all correlate with the information that we've seen there too. So the key outtake for anyone out there is editorial media is definitely really helping to shape currently what ChatGPT says about companies, brands, products, services, categories, etc.
Which is that connector with GEO again, isn't it? That you need to be out there doing your job as PRs, and you will have that influence on the GEO space automatically in some cases if you're doing a good job.
Yeah, 100%. And that again is why I think it's so important. I know this was something we were going to talk about later, but if we look historically at the SEO industry, I really feel like the PR industry missed the boat. If you look from sort of 2010 to 2012 all the way through to kind of 2020, that was a period of time where you could see that high domain authority outlets, particularly editorial media, the likes of the Guardian and the Telegraph and the Times and all the other sources out there, had a real impact on search engine rankings. And there was some, very few, but there was some really smart people like Andy Barr and Rich Lee and people like that who built whole agencies and propositions around that kind of PR for SEO concept. But not enough people in the PR industry really got hold of it and got their hands around it. So what that led to was SEO businesses, the creation of digital PR, which is basically link building with a kind of a PR tosh up on the front of it. But the problem that created was a huge influx of people into our space who didn't have the grounding kind of foundational understanding of PR and media relations and things like that. So would take a link building mentality to something which is not a link building activity, right? We talk about media relations and the relationships that we have with the media for a reason, because it is an earned kind of relationship. There's no one owes us a favor, out there. And we have to build those relationships over time. And that's built through, trust and doing a good job and, approaching the right people with something that's brand relevant in the right time and not necessarily expecting anything in return. And that, not certainly by some distance, not all of the new market entrants, and the folks from link building and digital marketing backgrounds that came to do digital PR took that approach. There were some great digital PR agencies, PropellerNet, Rise at 7, and there's a whole cadre of Bottled Imagination. There's some great ones out there. Bottle PR, there's some really good agencies that take a digital PR approach to things. Yeah. But for every good one, you'll kind of get 50 bad ones, right? And I think ultimately that's created problems for the PR industry, because all of a sudden we're not just competing with the 4,000 other PR agencies that are out there and the 100,000 other professional PR people out there. We're competing with all of the other people in digital PR, link building, SEO, all digital marketing, who are all trying to approach the same, few thousand journalists that there are in the UK, all trying to get coverage of their clients and trying to, get ink from those folks, to use a bit of an old-fashioned saying, dating me somewhat, as a result. So that has really caused us an issue as an industry. And if you look on Tech JPR or other communities of journalists, and when they complain about an approach that they had from a quote unquote PR professional today, 9 times out of 10, it won't be actually from a PR agency. It will be from, when you go and Google the agency that did it, it will be from someone that's got link building or digital PR or SEO or digital marketing or something like that in their strapline or the descriptor of what they do as a business, not, PR or media relations.
So is it your contention that the industry, generally speaking, ceded the field and just left the field of play completely when it comes to SEO, in part because they either didn't understand it or they didn't get their head around what was going on, and there's a danger right now that if we don't get our heads on quickly around GEO, history is going to repeat itself?
Yes. That's the show. I mean, yes. It's the answer to the question, Tony. You've got it. And it's the reason I wrote the GEO for PR primer, because we can't lose this opportunity again. And just because in just the same way as last time, you had some, great agencies like Radioactive and Ten Yetis and people like that who got it. There was a whole cadre of other agencies that didn't. And so ultimately, exactly, the ground was seeded, and onto that ground came, new market entrants, other market entrants, and it isn't just that we lost budget and we lost revenue. Like, we either lost, if you're in-house, you lost budget, or if you're in an agency, you lost revenue, right? It isn't just that, but it's also that it created this new inbound competition, who were all approaching the same people that we wanted to approach, with approaches that weren't as good or as brand relevant or as high quality or whatever as the ones that we would be going out with. And then it therefore poisoned the well for us in terms of doing our job on a daily basis as well. So for all of those reasons, I think, like, let's not cede the ground. I love that phrase, Tony. Let's not cede the ground this time round, and let's get our heads around it. And as an industry, do something, collectively, share our knowledge, share our understanding, share what we're seeing with one another, and make sure that we're successful this time around in really owning the space, that our clients are coming to us and saying, can you help us understand how this works and what we can do about it? So
let's look at that then. How do we go about doing that? And obviously, I don't want you to give away your secret sauce, but in general terms, what is it that agencies and PR professionals should be doing to kind of equip themselves with the right knowledge and skills to be able to answer those questions?
Yeah, 100%. So there's probably 2 parts to it. I can talk about like resources, people to follow, things like that in the kind of the moment. But in terms of like day-to-day basis, what should you do, or what does GEO work look like? Maybe. First things first is monitoring for this stuff. So basically setting up a whole load of prompts about your business, your organization, your client, their product, service category, their competitors, etc., on each of the different models within each of the different platforms, and try and get as much understanding as you possibly can of how questions along the lines of what is the best product or service to meet a need that is relevant to my client or my business or my organization's products or services, along those lines. Start just monitoring that stuff and just seeing what comes back, who's mentioned, and then analysing how those responses were created, what sources are cited, where you're mentioned or where your client is mentioned, and where the product category, services, and where those are cited from, and similarly, what are those sources that are cited about your competitors? And then thinking, okay, what do we have to do? Are we seeing some sources come through consistently, really, really strongly, about our competitors, and we haven't been featured by that particular outlet or website or whatever? And is that an opportunity for us to outreach and to get content there? Also to think about what is said about us versus our competitors, and how much of that is from own media, and look at our own website and think, are we answering enough of the questions about our product, service, category, etc. on our own website? And do we need to update copy and content on our own website as well to better reflect what we do and what we can do for our prospective clients? So I think those are the three steps really to GEO are: one, auditing and understanding where things are now, and then benchmarking and monitoring on a regular monthly basis. Second, understanding what and as part of that, understanding where that content's coming from. Where are we, where aren't we in comparison to our competitors? Then building a strategy that thinks about, on our site, what do we need to do? What are the pages that we might need to update? What are the pages that we don't have at all that talk about things that are relevant to our product, service, category, etc. And then off-site, where do we need to be mentioned? Where should we be find ourselves being talked about, which are going to more likely appear within AI search relevant to our business. Now, anyone with a background in SEO like I have will hear me say that and say, that sounds a heck of a lot like SEO, Darryl. Right? To which I say, hands up, right? Like, it is. But there are a few things about GEO which are different to SEO, like the links don't, in terms of primary thinking, first order thinking, links don't matter as much as citations do, right?
Yeah.
For example, and there are some other things around, which I won't go into the nuts and bolts of, but make GEO and SEO, there are slightly different aspects to those two different things. SEO still has a huge impact on GEO though. And I am not, I'm very vocal and open and transparent about that, right? Why? Because when you ask an LLM a question, if you can either ask it like a hard fact, like what is the capital of France, right? It will know from model data that the answer to that question is Paris, and it won't have to search the internet or go anywhere else to find an answer to that question. If you ask it, what is the best football team in France, or like who did Paris Saint-Germain play last night, then it will have to do an internet search to find the answer to the questions. And different LLMs will search a different number of sites and return a different number of citations, etc. Anywhere between 3 and 20. The median I think I've seen is 5. So therefore SEO is still really important, because for that bit of internet research that the LLM has to do, and obviously Google uses Gemini, OpenAI, ChatGPT uses Bing, etc., etc. For that little bit of internet-based research that the LLM has to do, where you appear, where you're ranked, still really, really matters. And lots of the foundational principles that I write about in the GEO for PR primer around EEAT content and things like that are all still true, whether it's GEO or SEO. But I think GEO is that little bit closer to PR than even SEO was.
Yeah.
So let's get hold of this. And it is a new opportunity where new budget is being created for new activity. So let's make sure we claim that in the PR and communications function, rather than let that be claimed by someone else.
I mean, you've talked about clients starting to come to you and starting to ask questions about it, but they're kind of very early in the piece as well, aren't they? I think you've probably got a bit of time, I guess, to get your act together and to get a true understanding of it before you kind of answer those questions.
Yeah, 100%. And the last thing we need as well is for folks to either try to claim knowledge they don't have,
Yeah.
or to pretend or anything, because that doesn't do any of us any good, as professional communicators. So yeah, spend the time, do the research, do some work, test some of this stuff out for yourself, see what you're seeing in relation to your clients, your product, service category, etc., and then apply that thinking to the consultancy and advice that you provide your clients. I think that's no bad place to start, no bad way of starting things.
Thanks for listening to PR in the Real World. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could subscribe to the podcast and leave us a quick review. Your support really helps spread the word and reach more marketing and PR professionals just like you. And don't forget to share this podcast with your colleagues or anyone who'd benefit from the insights we share. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for more tips, strategies and real-world stories from the PR frontlines.